All right, we're here with Deb Wolfley, running for District 21. Go ahead and tell us about you, Deb.
Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I appreciate you setting this up, and it's good to be able to sit down and just chat about several things on this race for District 21. So again, my name is Deb Wolfley. I've lived in Lincoln County for pretty much all my life, born and raised here. I have a wonderful wife, 6 children, 15 grandchildren. And so I've been, like I say, involved in different activities here in Lincoln County. I have a master's degree in public administration. I worked for the town of Alpine as their city and town administrator for a few years. I've been county commissioner for 8 years. I was sheriff for 9 years and as a deputy, and I've been on the school board here locally. And so I've done a lot of things, as far as involved here in Star Valley. I've been involved in a lot of different civic groups, like the Arts Council group and Rotary when I was in Kimmer, and Boy Scouts of America too, just a lot of things like that. And then my wife and I had a retail store in Afton for 20 years. And I also worked for Maverick Country Stores in their Afton office here for 10 years. And so all of these things have given me really good experience as far as looking forward, and to being able to offer some things which will, I think, give me some good experience in serving in the House District 21 position. And so with that experience and budgeting and grants and things like that, I've thought about this position for quite a while, the last couple of years, and I just, back in my mind, I just felt like I needed and wanted to be able to serve in this position here, because I see some things that I'd like to work on. I see some things that maybe could be done a little bit differently in Cheyenne. And so I just focused the last 2 or 3 years on really studying the issues, what's going on here in Wyoming, especially here in Star Valley, and how the state laws affect our citizens, and also looking at our state agencies to see what rules and regulations they have that can help or hinder the things that we enjoy here in this area there. And so with that in mind, I just put a lot of thoughts and really in prayer into it, and I decided I need to have this opportunity to run. I'm really excited about it. It just gives me, again, the opportunity to work with people. I know a lot of legislators already, both past and current legislators. I've talked to them different times the last few months, getting their ideas and see what's going on. And so I just feel like I'm ready to serve and can hit the ground running as far as being an advocate and a lobbyist for the citizens here of District 21 and statewide.
All right.
So can you expand a little bit on what you see the needs in Star Valley are that you're going to be able to advocate for at the state level for us?
You bet. Thank you, Bill. So obviously the number one big issue is the property tax situation. That affects all of us, whether we're a landowner, homeowner, or even a renter, where a property tax is going to get passed on down to them in various ways and times. And so the property tax issues is huge for us. And it just, been in this county, in this area for all my life, and so I know what it means to see and watch the amount of property tax increase just so much in the last 2 or 3 years. And so what's affecting our families and livelihood and our citizens, especially retired folks. And so we've got to work on that. That's what I mentioned earlier, is that I've been talking to some legislators that they're working on a plan to really come up with, I think it's a very good solution for this situation here. And it's really it wasn't introduced last time, so it's kind of a whole different concept. And it just, in a nutshell, it boils down to is that when we can really focus on the issues of our state budget as far as spending, our state budget increased quite a bit this last go around, a lot more than what any our income growth did or things like that. And so we're looking at 23% increase in the state budget. So I think when we can get a better handle on our state budget, really have a true, sound, constitutional spending policy in place that we're going to fund the programs is authorized and outlined in the Constitution, but obviously we've got to take care of our citizens. And so if we can work on our state budget and then keep it in check, and then the surpluses that we have, obviously we're going to put some in state savings like they have already in past years. But there's more that we can do as far as having the surpluses, then start having a fund to actually pay down our property taxes. Because this group that I'm looking at and talking to, they like to see ideally within 6-8 years to have this fund build up to where nobody pays property tax in Wyoming. And that's a pretty radical change. I shouldn't say radical, it's a good change, that philosophy. Let's live within our budget for the, and that also applies, to local government. If we can work on ways to curb spending, and then take care of, because we don't want a wealthy tax always on our mind as far as we have some property, I'm going to pay that tax, that property is mine, it's free and clear, it should be mine, period, instead of paying a wealth tax in perpetuity. And so there's going to be some other things working on too, as far as other legislators have some plans. And so that one bill that was vetoed by Governor Gordon, I'm sure that'll be revisited, and maybe modified or changed. But again, there's legislators that are really ready to go and changing some things there. And so property tax is huge that I want to work on.
So living within our means and our budget, where do you see the excess in the budget? Because we have a surplus, and then they go back in and they dig around, and everybody gets their little slush fund monies, and Gordon has got his carbon capture thing going, which is ridiculous. But anyways, everybody's got their little slush funds. So where do you see the excess in the budget that we can trim the fat out of? So
to better answer that, I would have to do some more digging around in the state budget. I've been going through that and looking at the number of state programs, trying to figure out was there any new program that was introduced this last time, how many new employees were hired, and if so, where and why. And so off the top of my head, I can't specifically name an area. Well, one example was, I'm glad they did that last year. They put in the budget, to spend $700,000 to take, some students down to the Rose Bowl parade. It'd be nice, whatever, but not.
And put a float in it.
Pardon?
And put a float in it.
Yeah, put a float there. Yeah. So things like that. See, what happens is they pass a budget, and budgets increased, and then the next time they say, oh, we're going to cut back. Maybe from an increase from 5% to 4% or whatever, you think, oh yeah, they're cutting back, that's great. But what happens is we forget about that was increased from the year before, and so now you have additional increase again as far as even though it's 1% less. So there's little ways like that. I think that it's hard to read the budget and what's going on there. Just the legislators that I've talked to told me, yeah, there's some areas that we can share and inform you as far as some things that need to be changed and worked on there. There's so many issues, because you have one group of people that want this, and another group of people want that. So how you balance out the needs and the wants, as far as the state budget there. Again, so we probably know about how we spend a lot of money per capita on our state residents, which is good in a lot of ways, but are we getting, the true picture of things there? So I'd have to do some more research on that just to see some areas that I feel like, that we need to cut back on and watch a little bit closer as far as the increases, and to really have justify why they need, some new employees, and look at, the raises and benefits, and obviously we want to take care of our state employees, but let's make sure that we're within reason and that we're, be able to justify things that way there.
So as you the numbers within the state in terms of the percentage of people on the population that are actually receiving some sort of check from the government, be it the state, that are employed through the state, retirements through the state. Pretty soon the numbers of those that are producing the revenue, the tax revenue that goes into paying all of that are gonna it's going to become lopsided. Essentially, there's more taking from the system, right?
Correct.
So it's going to take a dramatic change in order to sort of balance that out, because we can all talk how much we want to see certain things cut in different areas, but if there's the majority of people that are receiving benefits or checks or money or from some sort of government check, in any way, they arguably can almost outvote in the state of Wyoming. I mean, it's pretty close to either them or the people they know. They can almost outvote the people that are actually out there sort of writing their own check, if you will.
Yeah.
How do you see to fix that?
So, such interesting to see, what's happened in our country, in our state, and even our local area here. We're really used to being given handouts, and free money, and this program, that program, and so we're conditioned, to have that come back to us, and we like it. I think it's really great. But there's going to be a day come where we're going to pay the piper as far as, this money. It is not there. I just read an article in Casper Store last month about an amount of revenue coming from our mineral base and what it's been over the last 20 years. I mean, it's huge. We've been so fortunate and blessed to live in the state, that we've had good mineral production that's helped us in so many ways, but that's going down. And so the Craig report that comes out, I think 3 times a year, which is the revenue estimating group in Cheyenne that gives the governor and all elected officials, this is what we anticipate revenue coming in from the mineral production from our lands here. And so the coal and the gas and oil, especially the coal, is just dropping. And so they figure by 2028, we're going to be a third of what it was, 20 years ago. And that's a lot of money. And so I think what we really have to do is take a hard, long look, at all of us and say, what things really should we have government provide for us? An education program that's okay, here's the revenue, here's the programs, here's the Constitution, here's what we should be doing. Look at these handouts, these programs. It can't keep on going, so we've got to bite the bullet, and educate ourselves and make some decisions. We've got to work together, both the federal government and the state, county and city, local government, to say, yeah, because it's, and as our state grows, then there's a call for, we got to increase our budget. Well, it may be increased in certain areas there, but we cannot keep continuing to fund, programs, that the federal government maybe have control over. There's some medical issues there and education issues and just a lot of things there that the state has taken a lot of money, and we got to be very, very careful of that. And so your answer, is that we've got to educate our folks on what's going on and the challenges we're going to face in the coming future for less tax money. And then how do we, what do we do? And then go back to elected officials, folks, that are going to stand firm when they're voting in Cheyenne and say, no, we've got to have a sound fiscal policy. We cannot, pass this budget with all these increases here. And then, be able to stand firm on that. And that's some of the things, that's one reason why I want to run for this position. I'm only one voice, one vote, but it'll be a pretty firm vote, voice when it comes to issues that we need to have a better spending policy in our state budget and look at what we're doing. I hope that answered a little bit.
Yeah, it's a complicated question for sure, but I appreciate it. Another question I guess I would have, similar to what I asked in the last meeting, but kind of an extreme one, I guess, in people's views. I don't know, not for me, it's not that extreme, but I believe we're obviously facing what is imminently probably some sort of a national divorce, potentially. The debt limit's obviously got out of control. At some point, things are gonna, come to a head. States like Wyoming that maybe aren't, that have the resources and ability to sort of stand on their own, maybe in conjunction with other states. Say something extreme like that happened in terms of, Texas and others looking to maybe secede from the union. They've had a gut full of it, which, you know, the bottom line is we're all lying to ourselves if we're just pretending that the 34 trillion is going to magically just disappear, right? So something's going to happen. If that happens on your watch, if you were to get elected, what will be your approach in terms of your representation of our area and people, in terms of supporting or not the state being able to, let's say, secede from the union?
That's an interesting question, you know, and I've looked at other states that have talked about that, and you know, looked at states, that part of the states wants to succeed from, like, there's California and Oregon are two come to mind that want to go to somewhere else there. And so my belief is that, you know, certainly see what our local citizens want, what they think there. But to look at, you know, really what's best, you know, to protect our freedoms and our rights, and to look at all the issues there. I'm not above at all starting looking at, well, if that's going to be the best route, you know, that's going to help our people in Wyoming, you know, there's a lot of options out there, because I believe, like you said, we're going to have some serious times coming up in our federal government and our United States, and so who knows what's going to happen, but I think we need to have some options open that, you know, help our citizens to be protected and to stand up for what's right.
And with that, would that be, you know, if we say Wyoming decided to pull away, we decided to secede from the union, how would we protect our natural resources and to keep them ours as our own individual state, and say, now you pay us if you want them, instead of, you know, vice versa, and, well, you can buy them from us and then you give us back money, and, well, they're ours, so how do you?
That's a toughie there, especially you look at the mineral extraction program, and most of it's, you know, from federal land, which in my opinion should have been state land in the first place. You know, and so it depends on who's president, you know, and their philosophy there, because that could really cause some, you know, some pretty serious consequences as far as.
Because we have a lot of money in natural resources in this state. A lot of
Absolutely.
money. Yeah.
They could turn the coal plants all back on, see if that happened immediately.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the electricity, of course, they've got to have that pretty much from us, probably.
Yeah.
Two-thirds of the coal that produces electricity comes from the state of Wyoming.
Well, and I heard something just the other day. I can't remember the exact number, but I'm going to say 7. There are only 7 hubs in the whole country that's where everybody gets their electricity from. And I'm like,
and that's scary.
That's scary.
That is.
That is very scary.
Yeah.
And where are they at, and who controls those 7?
That's right.
Because
how vulnerable we are.
Yeah.
Based on that.
Because this one is, you know, the whole West Coast, and you get rid of that one, and the entire West Coast has no electricity.
To answer your question there, Lindsay, I don't know. That's a tough one there, because that would have to be well thought out and look at a lot of different things there, and maybe by smarter people than I am as far as looking ahead. If the state wanted to do that, you know, there'd have to be some pretty good evidence and a game plan to do that, and then protect our interests, you know, as far as that, because it's in our state, it's still on federal lands, but there's got to be a way to work on that.
Yeah. And it's an extreme case, but
I mean,
it's still interesting to think about.
It seems kind of extreme, but then
But
also
it might not be.
It just keeps heading down that track.
It might
where
not
like,
be extreme,
man,
yeah.
How far out are we? Like, do we need
Yep.
some people that can understand the concept and proactively prepare to represent and have plans in place to allow for us to, you know, maybe figure that out, rather than it be just utter chaos.
Yeah.
That's the idea. I mean, what else?
Because is it something that, you know, we would have to decide, we got to do this now, or is it something that we can plan on? Well, you know, take a year to kind of plan this situation out. You know, it's tricky.
I think our representatives honestly need to start putting together again, sort of that
Plan B.
Plan B, yeah, exactly. Sort of a plan B to, well, what if? Let's just not pretend anymore, because we're all pretending right now, right? Kind of.
We have for a while.
34 trillion is not just overdoable. I mean, we can't sustain it, obviously. So it's like, man, what are we doing? You know.
And I agree with you 100%. That's one of the reasons why, look at what's happened the last couple of years as far as with the legislators on different issues that come up, and a lot of times they were shot down because they was ideas from outside the state of Wyoming. But my opinion is I want to be proactive. I want to be, a leader, at least, be involved. Like you said, what if, in this case here, should we look at this situation here a little bit? Maybe have some plans, or maybe the state's doing this law. Maybe is there a reason for it? But yeah, let's look into it there. So many times, there was a few legislators that I read their comments that says, no, we'll keep things here local in Wyoming. We don't have to go outside and look for trouble or look for other issues there. But no, let's be proactive. And, and see what's going to happen down the road, because you're right. I mean, that federal budget, when it crashes, it crashes pretty hard, and it affects, every part of our lives in so many ways. And so, what are we going to do?
Well, I mean, factually, what's happening is the federal government is spending our printed tax dollars, which we don't really have. They're just adding to the debt.
That's right.
To house people illegally at pushing $1,000 a night in some places, some less, in high-rise hotels, say in New York and other areas. And those same people, the whole design is to simply allow them the ability to vote, so that then they can maintain power, keep printing the money, and just milk us completely dry.
It's control.
So that's what's happening. So then on the flip side, again, I'm looking for a representative that will go in there and just say, well, let's not pretend anymore. And then get all the other people, let's call it what it is, get all the other gray hairs in the building, which is kind of what happens. And sometimes it shouldn't happen, right? In some ways, right? Because some may not have the full perspective, right? I've got to push another 40 years on this plan. You've got a few less, right? But the idea is just like, we got to have people that can really look not only that way forward, but then deeply look to the kids and grandkids. I'm just say, how are we going to really change this dramatically? If we just go down the same road and we just kind of bitch about little things, and we act like, hey, I got a red jersey on and I'm fighting for you. It's the same old crap.
It is.
It's the same stuff.
Yeah.
That's what we've been getting forever. That's what Brasso is now. That's what,
And that's why, it's important, like you said, to have enough in there that can override the governor's veto.
We need extreme-ish people. The term extreme, okay? Marjorie Taylor Greene. Someone will stand up there and say, "Listen, I got 2 bird fingers. Which ones do you want to look at? I'll show you both of them." That's what we're needing. We don't want the same old shit. The same old shit just gets us the same old shit. Yep. Sorry to say that on video. Apologize. But that's the truth, though, right? That's what's happening. It's all that's happening.
Yeah. And so how you get people in that's going to stand up, say these are reasons why, if I'm voting this way, I'm trying to do all I can to persuade fellow legislators, and to other people in the state, say, hey, this is the reasons, I'm representing my district, but also this is, representative for the state of Wyoming. And so as collectively, folks out there in different counties, we have got to face this situation, this matter, and so we can do some more education than that's been done in the past. That's one of my goals there, is that we can just be a little more forceful getting out there, and here's what's going on with the budget in these areas here, and you can put some pressure on your legislators, on your 5 elected officials.
And I feel like over the last 2 years, we're I want to say extremely conservative community, extremely conservative. Everybody's got a food supply. Everybody's, we're
Not everybody.
Well, the majority of everybody, but we kind of try to be a proactive community instead of a reactive community. So we're like, we're planning ahead. Well, what if this happens? What if this happens? And there's going to be a few that are going to be let down and go, oh crap, I totally blew that. But I think as a community, as a conservative community, we were let down with Lane Allred. Going in and him voting the way that he did, it kind of set us up for 10 steps backwards, kind of, and we didn't get that ahead that we needed to have for our community. And it was not exactly devastating, but it was devastating. You just think this is what we need, and we're hoping that you're the guy and you're not the guy. So, okay, so with that being said, how, McKay said something about him wanting to be transparent. He wants to do not necessarily a video, but, basically say, hey, this is what this bill is, and tell the community that this is what's going on. This is what I would like to do. Maybe get some feedback. Is that something that you would like to do as well? Because I think transparency is huge, because I don't know what's in all these bills, and I don't understand probably even half of it.
Sure.
And to read through the fat and
Good question.
get an answer.
So in Cheyenne last year, there's a lot of tough issues there and a lot of back and forth. And so from what I understand, reading a few things and watching it and talking to other people, that many times when they vote on bills, either as a group or in a committee, unless it's really, really close between the A's and the I's, then they just go by who sounds the loudest. And so there's no really official count of the vote. So there's a group of legislators over there that started last time and said, okay, we want to have every vote posted in committee and on each amendment and bill as a whole to see how you're voting. And there was a lot of folks over there that just was very angry about that. So you're wasting time, you're slowing things down, and I forget the other language they used. But really what it shows is how people are voting. And that's the way you've got to have that transparency to know how they voted, in committees or whatever. And so that's one thing there. And so is that transparency too, is being able to report back, to your citizens and say, this is what's going on, this is what I'm thinking, what do you think? And transparency in emails and on recorded calls and things like that. But really in the votes, that's how you can have to show people your true intentions, what's going on there. So I have no problem with having every single vote recorded and counted and shown to the public, how I would vote and why. May not please everybody all the time, but on the really key core issues that I feel so strongly about, they can count on that vote going towards, what I believe is right and wrong there. And so I'm wholeheartedly in support of transparency and letting the public know. And just getting them involved, say, you need to know, come back, here and meet with the public after the session. Say, this is what's going on before, these were the bills we're working on, what do you think? And just try and get their opinion input. Yeah, we definitely need some more accountability.
Okay.
One thing, just to add on to what Lindsay was saying, and I'm very similar this way, I want the honest Cliff Notes version of exactly what the bill is, and then obviously the accountability of the companies in terms of voting and where that sits, right? Because a lot of times I don't read through it all. A lot of people, and people take advantage of that. They just don't know, and they just like, well.
So one tool that's really good there, so you can go on the Wyoming Legislative site there, and you can pull up each bill, and the top of that website there, it's got the bill number, who sponsors the bill, it's got a digest on it, and then it's got the fiscal accountability, the fiscal note on it. So you click on the digest, and that gives you the Cliff Notes on it. Just tells you pretty succinctly what that bill's all about. Then you can click on the fiscal, and it tells you how much LSO says it projects this bill would cost in terms of new employees or whatever it is. A lot of bills there's quite a bit of money. Some bills there's no fiscal impact, but it is a pretty good resource. And now some people will go and check that out. A lot of them won't. It depends on their interest and time. But you're right. We just need to have just a quick Cliff Notes, whether it's in the paper or email. This is what this bill is about. And a lot of people really, just rely and count upon a legislator going down there and just taking care of things. That's the way it should be for the representative republic there. But it goes back to, again, what's the priorities as far as that representative doing on behalf of their citizens in Cheyenne to be able to legislate that protects their property right, that protects, their interest
in the government, so it's not overbearing, burdensome, and that we're trying to do all we can to stay within our budget. And so, yeah, it's tough. A lot of people just have a hard time figuring out what that bill is.
Yeah.
Some of those bills are, 40, 50 pages, and trying to go through all those. They got red lines, and
Yep.
amend this and that. And I appreciate that, yeah.
And I think another thing that would maybe benefit the community is you've got the transparency of, hey, this is what I'm thinking, da 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 da. Because, like you said, you're not going to make everybody happy every time, which is totally understandable. But to maybe come back and say, this is why I voted this way.
Mm-hmm.
I think if, and I'm just going to pick on Lane because Lane was the most recent, but if Lane would have come back and said, this is why I voted this way, maybe people could go, oh, maybe I can look at that. And then maybe it's not so bad, or well, that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So I think that might be another way of being transparent and saying, well, you know what? Half of you might not be happy about this, but this is how I voted. This is why I voted that way. This is how I took the bill, how, it was projected to me. This is how I read it. This is what I'd like to see come out of it. That maybe that kind of a thing. And then maybe that might soften the blow on some of the ones that, well, I didn't agree with that, or, whatever.
And that's the challenge, is to anticipate, trying to figure out, what are some of those key issues that I need to make sure I let the people know. Because what one legislator may think is key, to a lot of people isn't, then, this is a minor bill over here, but somebody else, you dirty rat.
Yeah.
Why did you vote
Yep.
like that way?
Yep.
It's kind of a no-win sometimes. But yeah, I just think it'd be a lot more communication as far
Yes,
as
definitely.
what's going on there and some of the challenges there. Absolutely.
Definitely.
So,
Deb, can you, you have a vast background in politics, whether it's being the sheriff or county commissioner or whatnot. In politics, consensus is a big thing
Mm-hmm.
to develop. Can you give us a couple of examples up from your background of where you've had to develop a consensus within a group and what that was and what the result of it was?
My very first thought was on that when I was commissioner. We had a person that wanted to develop some land up Grays River.
Wouldn't have been called.
Up Dead Man.
Okay, I know what you're talking.
Anyway, and so it was a very tough issue, as far as looking at property rights, and then to look at what a lot of the public wanted as far as not having that property developed. And so, and ultimately, so coming to consensus, you talked a lot with the public, talked a lot with the planning office, talked, with the fellow commissioners, and what do you think? What are we going to do? What's best here? And so, and there were some varied opinions on that, and so, I had to come to consensus a little bit, or kind of think, well, okay, what's best, and so is there a way to get a few win-wins for everybody involving, their point of view on that, and so which we did as far as changing the scope of that development.
What was your role in the Renegade consensus then?
Well, and so it's talking to the planning office.
But what was your role? I mean, what was your position at the time that Renegade came across?
Well, and so when it come across,
Were you a county commissioner? Were you the sheriff?
I was county
Commissioner.
commissioner.
Okay.
And so when this plan was presented to us as commissioners by the planning department, he said, this is going to be a big deal for Lincoln County because of so many of these factors. And we said, yeah, we see that very quickly there. And so that was my role there as far as, looking at all those issues there, and then you start talking to the planning office and start talking to developers in a variety of settings. And we told them, at least I told them my position as far as, I really didn't want to see that ground developed up there. But yet, a big part of me too says, that's his property, and if it falls within the regulations that we have and other agencies, do we deny that? You know, what do we do? And so there had to be some negotiations, some discussion about that, and come to an agreement, consensus. Well, we can, you know, agree to grant this permit, but based upon some different changes there. And so that's one example there that I had another pop in my mind, and then it left too right quick there. And of course, I was on the school board many years ago, and we had an issue there that we had to. There was on some books censors or being censored back then.
How about something from your time as sheriff?
When I was sheriff,
Yeah.
force consensus.
Yes.
Gosh,
Maybe you were implementing a policy or whatnot that was not popular with your troops, and you had to develop.
well,
I'm not just using that as an example that you
Yeah.
don't get, but
right there. I just nothing really pops into mind as far as consensus. So there was some areas, you know, that we worked on that wasn't popular by some people, as far as, you know, traffic control and drug investigation and things like that. But you know, it's really more in law enforcement was consensus. You know, because I was president of the Sheriff Association for a while, and so you have elected officials there, the sheriffs, and then a lot of times as an association, we wanted to set certain standards as far as training and things like that, and then how we mandated new areas of coming down from the federal government that want us to do this as far as, you know, traffic or drug investigation, you know, or things like that. And so it took some work, some different times on with the other thing was, the peace officer standard training, which sets the guidelines. And so there's a state board, it's called the Peace Officers Standard Training, that set the guidelines. But the Sheriff Association didn't like how they was implementing that and what they wanted to do. So when I was president of that, then we had to work with them and talk to them and really said, well, we can handle this, but, you know, for this area over here, we don't like that for these reasons here, you know. And so it's just a matter of working through it and then to get things resolved there. But it's really, it just goes back to, you know, whether it's legislators or whatever, families or communities, if you have an issue you need to work on, you need to, you know, be able to look at all sides, look at for the common good, the greater good of what's going to happen, and be able to say, you know, for these reasons here, we need to head this direction, but I can see how we need to maybe change this, tweak this, you know, I have no problem with that if it's still heading toward the greater good.
well, bouncing back a little bit to what Nick was kind of referring to, the influence of federal government in Wyoming is tremendous. It owns 60-something% of their property, and you know, it's got a major interstate. Where do you see that the state of Wyoming can become more independent of the government teat, so to speak, the federal teat, and quit taking so much money from them and becoming a little bit more independent?
Well, and so one area, the first one is education. I know that there's been some things that the Wyoming has taken federal money that has, you know, put some onerous restrictions and guidelines as far as doing this or that, which in my opinion, and I'm trying to think of examples on there, but it's what I've been told and read is that, you know, there's some federal money that we should not have taken. And there's been some programs in the Department of Education, and they said, no, we're not going to do that. The state program said no, so that's good there. You know, law enforcement too. You know, I know that the state or the state agencies, state gets a lot of money from the federal department for law enforcement. They pass that down there again, but then guidelines on, you know, DUI enforcement and traffic and training, things like that, where the federal government tries to tell you, you know, what you need to do in that area is there. So as a whole, I think, you know, we're much better off being able to provide our services funded by our state, not have to have that money come in from federal with their control and guidelines and restrictions that just, again, it's more money coming in than we get used to it. We get used to these new programs, you know, and we shouldn't have that. Because, you know, some programs will go away and a lot of them don't. And sometimes the federal government has so much money, it's okay, after this time period, then the money stops, but you've got to keep it on, you know, and so that's caused some problems. Same way with the state. The state is giving money to different towns and counties and groups. So here's this money here, but you got to keep it on after it runs out there. And so that's another issue that's got to be looked at.
So what do you think, something that comes to mind for myself in recent time is the EPA's attempted influence on our water in Star Valley. It was not received real well by the residents. I went to that meeting and they were basically told to go pound salt. It was refreshing from our perspective, but they were very condescending on sitting on the stage. What can we do to keep three-letter agencies like the EPA out of our business here as far as our water goes, or our environment goes, or our natural resources?
So I don't know if you're aware of the federal government and Congressman Harry Hageman was very instrumental in this. About a year ago, they came out with the RAINS Act.
The BLM.
Well, it's a RAINS Act,
Right.
which, REINS.
Okay.
And so what that says in there, that any federal agency that tries to implement a new policy or a rule where it's going to have, I think, the amount, they changed the amount up to $500,000. If it goes over that, going to have an impact on somebody else, then that rule cannot be implemented. It has to go through Congress. So in essence, what they're saying is, we're sick and tired of having all the federal agencies mandate their philosophy or their rules, to the American public by all their decisions. And so I forget the figures, but one time, I saw the figures where Congress passed, I don't know, it's like 380 laws, something like that, even a 2-year time period. But the administrative agencies in the federal government, it was over 20,000 new different rules and acts that, they mandated went forth out nationwide. And so that's gone out of control. Just why the Chevron case, come down to the Supreme Court, that's going to change things for the government. So then it goes back to, okay, and so that's great, I applaud that. So now what can the state government do in the same way? We want our state agencies to be a resource for help, not something that comes in and says you've got to do this and this and this, cost you this and this and this, and have done this time period, where maybe one little thing was good, but 9 out of 10, are not good. They're a harm to business. And so that's something I think that we need to really be diligent on and looking, what administrative acts like the EPA, DEQ, Department of, I forget what it's called now, that does inspections on, dairies and things like that. There's just a lot of areas where we need to, talk to the folks and say, how you doing? Are you getting some good help from the state agencies, or are they, burden you with all these things there? And that's where, we can step in and say, that's not the intent. The legislative intent is to have these rules and regulations be a burden, to families and farms and homes and in small businesses. It's going to be a hindrance there. I'm a firm believer that we can do a better job on that.
Yeah, I really thought that we'd run the EPA out, but I was hiking up in Dry Creek a couple weeks ago and I ran into the guy that runs the water for that
Dry Creek,
And so we got talking about things. He goes, I have a litany of rules that I have to follow, and the EPA will fine me $18,000 a day if I don't follow every one of their guidelines. And that to me is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
That water is pure to start with.
yeah, and I don't think I realized this until that meeting, that the state of Wyoming, we don't control our own water.
Right.
How do we get that back? To basically say, pound sand, this is our water, or whatever, you don't control what we do or don't do with it.
It's such a huge issue, with the interstate contacts with other states as far as the water, and we have.
Well, I guess I just mean, like, how they wanted to be put in a water treatment plant, and you have to do this because your water could be contaminated. More local, I guess,
Yeah.
or just basically kind of the state to where that they can't come in and say, well, your water might just have a problem. You need to do this. but it doesn't, and it hasn't in 100+ years because we've been using it for 100+ years, let us be. We'll figure it out ourselves.
And that goes right back to how much money that the federal government is influencing Wyoming
Yes.
with. And
Yes.
so it's like, well, you know, we
Dangle
pay you
that
all this
apple.
money, you're going to do what we need to do. We need to get off of that.
To tag onto that real quick, that also, the money that the federal government is sending, they're sending back our money.
Mhm.
Wyoming sends them more than we get back.
Yes.
That's right.
So we're not getting money from the federal government, they're acting like we are. Everyone who's in these positions acts like they're benevolently giving something that is not theirs.
Exactly.
That's the way it is.
So it goes there and it comes back to you, but
But you
with
don't
an
get
admin
even,
fee tacked onto
yeah,
it.
but you don't
know,
get
yeah.
even nearly what we sent out.
Right.
And so Wyoming is one of the few states that doesn't have their own state agency for
Yes.
it. And so the question was asked to another legislator about a year ago. And he says, this person asked Senator Dockstader, so why doesn't Wyoming have, you know, our own state agency where we can control and handle things?
Yes.
And he said, we could. He says, we've done some studies on it, and they estimate in order to have enough help, manpower to cover the state and do things that we need to, that the federal government's doing right now, we'd have to hire 47 employees.
Okay.
He says, do you want that? You know, and so there's, you know, several sides of the coin that has to be looked at there.
So yeah, we would have to look at, you know, that bone being dangled in front of us. Is that worth
Right.
what we would have to pay 47 employees to do to
Exactly.
have that
Well,
back?
the answer to that is yes.
Usually.
To have
Yeah.
The bone's never
a bone to get
a good, yeah. There's
So what do you
lots
think
of
about
strings.
the nuclear power plant going in Cookeville? And was it who sent the article out today?
I think I did. Yeah,
I
today
didn't
or
get a
yesterday,
chance to
I can't
read it,
remember.
but it sounds like something else is in the works.
I read parts of it. I didn't get a chance to, and I hadn't had a chance after I got off work. But and I don't know if you'd seen that. It was on Star Valley,
SBI.
yeah,
right.
Independent. That they kind of put a thing on Facebook today, and I went, what is going on?
Just
Going
Can you
where?
pull it up?
Yeah, just hold on a second. Let me bring that one up.
It had to do with the nuclear power plant.
In Cameron, not Cokeville, Cameron.
Yeah, in Cameron.
I mean, Kimmer,
Yes,
not Cookeville. I'm
yep.
sorry.
All right.
But it had to do with them, like there was something else
Like
going
SBI
on. And I can't remember
News,
if it
it
was
was-
spreading to like other parts of the state. I can't remember. I
Yeah,
just glanced at it when I was
that's
at work, and I didn't get a
interesting,
chance to go back and read it yet.
situation out there, you know,
BWXT to evaluate locations in Wyoming for building new nuclear TRISO fuel production facility. And that's as far as I got because I was driving when you said
Yeah,
that.
and I kind of just glanced.
It's
that
the
part of it, and I'm like,
BWXT signed a cooperation agreement to examine potential construction options in the state for, that was the Wyoming Energy Authority. Anyways, since I haven't read this, I can't speak to it, but how about the what do you think about that power plant going in?
well, historically, I felt like that nuclear power was a good energy source. You know, that when done right, you know, it's a good resource there. And so when I first heard about that project coming in there and who was behind it and things like that, I had to raise my eyebrows 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I'm not qualified enough yet to know a lot of things, the negative parts to it that I haven't read or been told about. Obviously, you know, if it can be done to help our energy crisis, to help communities, you know, with jobs and things like that, provides a service, then that's great, as long as it's done right there. I don't know. I have more positives about it than negatives right now, until I learn more.
And I think I have more positive than negatives,
Likewise, yeah.
but I'm just worried that who's affiliated with it is kind of
But
scary.
what's exciting though is, you know, there's some new technology coming out for coal that I think is going to be a good benefit, you know, for that coal industry to use as a new resource to sell their coal to, instead of, you know, providing energy, you know, for coal-fired plants. But I think there's some things coming out that's hopefully going to help.
I don't know. Let's maybe I sent you a picture. Sent you questions about the airport. I don't know if you had any information on that. I don't even remember what the question was. Something about.
So one question that she asked about the Afton Airport as far as, the jets coming in and things like that. And so just to let her know, there is a airport board managed by the county and the city. They have their members that they select, and so they have a joint airport powers board there. The county historically, like this year, they budgeted $60,000 to give the Afton Airport. And so when this issue came up before about bigger planes coming in there, when I was commissioner, that we had to look at what is the local regulations here, and then the state regulations as far as planes, and then obviously the federal FFA as far as that. And so I don't have the answers as far as determine on the size of the plane there. Obviously, she could go to the airport board meetings and talk to them, to get a whole Rick Sessions on there, but that's the best source there just to learn more about.
And you said that there is $60,000 that goes to that. So is that out of our tax dollars that goes towards that?
Correct.
So we, as a community, are paying for this airport that we don't use. Do these planes that come in and land, do they pay a fee to use our airport?
As far as I know, they do. And so by far 90% of the funding comes from state and federal grants.
Okay.
And so the Afton puts in some, and then the county does, Lincoln County, but 90% comes from the state and federal for us to run that airport there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big issue there. And then on the issue of the septic systems in there, that a person can go to the county comprehensive land use plan, which has been adopted. The last one that was adopted and finalized was when I was commissioned there 15 years ago. But they have made several updates on that, and they are going to work on doing a whole new one, they said. But some of the updates have been on the treatment of septic systems throughout the county, and there's so many issues there that and it's a big problem. It's a big problem. It's going to get worse, and so there's the states looked at it, the county's working on it there, and so but they got to decide what they're going to do. And so, but she could go to that land use plan on the county website and the addendums, and I think I wrote it down. Chapter 25, the wastewater chapter in the county use plan, that addresses that there, and so she could look on there. But it's a big issue as far as water, and then like I say the septic systems there. And that's why finally in the town of my ranch had to finally get a central sewer system in there, because when they initially got going, it was just all septic tanks.
Yeah.
So with the growth that you're seeing in the Star Valley, do you think it's time for a county-wide infrastructure plan to address some of those issues, like a county-wide sewer system?
So,
and that's a question.
Yeah, and so when I was commissioner at the Lincoln County plan at that time, John Woodward, he says because of all the subdivisions and so much demand for water, he looked into it. He said there's really enough water that we could have a pipeline from the Snake River going clear up through the valley, which would supply all the water we need. We have that much water rights, so that was a while ago, and maybe that was, predate things there, but, sooner or later, we maybe have to look at that. But as far as, the sewer situation there, I don't know. It's got to come to some realization. There's got to be some planning, at least in core areas. That's why, new subdivision, they've got to have something to take care of all their septic.
The area I came from, everybody tapped wells randomly, and then one of the cities in the area goes, well, that sounds like a great idea, and they drilled a mega well, and they drained the water table for the entire area. So all these guys that were well water. And I was talking to somebody about this recently. He goes, you don't have to worry about that. We have more water, and you'll never know what to do with it. It's like, yeah, well, they thought so too.
That's right.
And I mean, I see, subdivisions going in, and I understand that you can't stop growth to some respect or another, but you can't keep punching holes in the ground and expect the water to come out, and then all of a sudden, I drill my well, and you come and build a house, and go a little deeper and dry my well, so I got to go deeper, and all of a sudden everybody's playing the race game.
That's right. Or does he have, wastewater leaching?
So I just wondered if there was ever at the county level ever any consideration of an infrastructure plan go, because they're all like, yes, let's build houses, let's do this, let's do that, uncontrolled, let's just go, and that's what you see out here. You see uncontrolled growth. Someday that's going to bite you in the butt.
Yeah, as they work on their new comprehensive land use plan, that probably will be a topic of discussion in there.
So how would that affect you at the state level? How can you support Star Valley or Lincoln County to provide, because that's an incredible amount of money you're going to have to spend for an infrastructure plan.
Absolutely, yeah.
So they're obviously going to come to the state and go, we need help.
Mhm.
So,
And then there's that bone again that's dangled, because you most likely are going to have to get help from the federal government that, well, we can't do it ourselves because we have no money because we've given you all of our money, and then it comes back to bite you in the butt a second time.
So you're all aware of the state land board and the uses there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is probably where we need to just
Yeah, that's
start there first.
Yeah. Come from there first, then, yeah. So obviously,
I mean, I think we're a ways away from that.
yeah.
I think
now,
so too,
but
but it's
with everybody,
but it's like Nick
like,
said, you
I just saw
you
a plan
have
to
to
do
plan
like,
ahead.
what was it, 300 or 500 homes up in Thane, and it's like, yeah, we're just going to drill holes in the ground.
Yep, and then the one in Alpine, they want to put like 150, I don't know if it's little
Right.
tiny homes or whatever, and I know there was talk across the street from my house to put in 40 or 50 homes, and I'm like,
Well, that's because you live there, because everybody wants to live next to you.
I know, my own personal junkyard view. But you just think, where is all this coming from? We're granted, our entire Earth has as many natural resources as we could possibly imagine, but you still have to be cautious because you don't want to, dip too far, I guess. I don't know. It's tricky.
Well, is that something from the state level, as a representative at the state, that you have any influence on?
Or is
in the
that
valley
just the
here,
board?
or do you bring that up? Because I see growth in this valley as one of the top probably 4 issues that this valley is going to face in the city.
And it
next 10
sucks.
years.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it does.
Because especially, when we lose our workers
Mhm.
because they can't afford to live here.
Mhm. That's huge.
That dovetails onto that is, how are people that we need to work here can afford to live here when Jackson
I
is
gotta shut
Jackson.
the phone off here.
But that dovetails from, the
And I think we're chasing
Property
rabbits
tax.
because I want to know what your plans are up at the state
yeah, because
level.
if that's not something that you would have your hand in, if that's,
Anyway.
the
Well, certainly my view is, that elected and then you start talking to county folks, officials in cities and towns, and then say, what are you looking at down the road as far as where you at? What are your greatest needs? And then they'll tell you real quick what their needs are. And if that need, as far as the water, the sewer doesn't come up, the top 2 or 3, then that tells you something there. It may have roads and maybe growth, whatever, there'll be a lot of issues there. And so you have to start getting educated on what the local needs are, and to see what's kind of timeline and things like that, and then go from there. Obviously, we want to promote the general health and safety and welfare of our citizens, in this district here. And so, again, it goes back to working together and seeing what needs there are, and then what in the timeline, what can be done. And then to move forward, just for education purpose there. But yeah, we want to help make sure we got the essential services that we need.
Great. And for me to wind up this, I'd like to know what your position on education is for the state. What's the state need education-wise? Obviously we talked a little bit about, we don't need a Department of Education at the federal level.
is telling
That's ridiculous. But what about here at the local level? What do you think is the number 1 priority for education for Star Valley?
And so the Constitution, mandates that the state provides money for education, which is great, as it should be. And so what I want as a legislator is to have the best use of that state money that goes to each school district, to use that wisely, and to be able to show how they're using that money, you know, to better educate and help our kids to go out in the workforce, go out to higher education resources there, and to just to use the best money, that money in the wisest way, as far as, you know, not wasteful and extravagant, and that we have, you know, good salaries, but yet we have, you know, accountability on test scores and things like that, and just say, hey, school district people, doing a great job to make sure that our test scores are high as we can get, and making good use of that money, and then we'll help you keep on providing. But they gotta make sure that we're all together on this page here as far as the best use of the money.
What's the number one, in your mind, what's the number one strength of the education system and the number one weakness in the education system here?
Well, the strength, we have good students, we have good parents, we have good educators, administrators that I think have, you know, the common good and goal of providing the best education possible. Maybe some of the strengths or weaknesses, I don't know. Sometimes maybe there's things that, you know, factions or different directions or divergence as far as, you know, going, you know, different plans or programs that, you know, may be good, may not. I don't know for sure, but I just think we have some good things going here in our district, and I want to keep that up. And so if there's things out there that I need to be aware of as far as, you know, the legislator, then I'm all ears.
So I've got one for you. So my cousin is the administrator for Lincoln County School District No. 2. You should probably know Matt Erickson.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, without question, we have too many top-end administrators within our administration. I don't think that a lot of those funds are being spent wisely, as you say. What say you?
Well, and that's been a topic that's been around for a long time, you know. And with you, I think, you know, that I've wondered in my mind, and I've asked, it's probably been a year, 2 years ago, that very question, and I don't know if it was Superintendent Erickson or which administrator it was, and they showed me how their structure of administrators is less than in other districts because they're doing more work, and so that's why their salaries are higher, because they're other districts the same size, you know, they have more administrators, but here they said they've chosen to have fewer administrators and they have more workload there. And so I don't know, I can't say, you know, yay or nay on that, but I've often wondered about that too, because I see the salaries and I see how many, and I wish I knew, but I don't.
Well, as a follow-up to that, I mean, obviously, you know, like I say, he's a nice guy, I like him, right? Good friend, you know, Matt is, but I mean, we can all be influenced a bit. You know, the guy's a good orator, he can explain stuff, he'll get you on his side pretty quickly. Sounds to me like he blew some smoke on you pretty good, with the ability to say, we do more work, so we get paid more. That's gotta stop. We gotta figure out how to stop that. Ain't
So
right.
I was told, not by an administrator, but that we mow, I can't remember exactly the number off the top of my head, but we 1,000 acres of lawn every year. But in that 1,000 acres of lawn throughout the county, the kids don't even use that when they're mowing the lawn. So why do we have so much lawn to mow? Because now we're paying somebody to mow the lawn that, like, right now the kids aren't even using the lawn.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I was not at a bus meeting, but I was talking to somebody about the busing, and like the way it's going on in the middle school is just an absolute shit show. Like the pickup drop off busing, it's a giant mess because the parking lot is so small that pickup drop off zone gets backed up all the way to Kennington Burton Lane, and if anybody's getting off work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they cannot get by because they're so far backed up waiting for parents to pick up kids at the middle school.
That's right.
So it was brought up that somebody had the idea to bring the busing from the back of the school and around, and then open up part of that grass that's on the front area where the sign is, make that more of a parking area, so the parking area was bigger. And that got shut down because, you know, we have to
The
have
lawnmowers union got to you.
because yeah, we have to have this. And you know, you wouldn't have to pave that back part, leave it a little dirt alley, whatever. But then I found out that we mow over 1,000 acres of lawn
Wow, didn't know that.
in the county, and I thought, okay, well the football field's turf, so that doesn't benefit us at all. I don't know how many other schools' football fields are turf now, so we're not mowing those and whatever. But and whatever they're doing at the high school now on the what is it, the soccer field or the football field, I haven't even driven by because I don't even want to know. But we're paying for something that isn't necessarily benefiting our school district while our children are even in school. It's kind of frustrating. When I heard that, I was like, what?
So it goes back to local control school board members.
Okay, I'll have to definitely bring them. See, this is why I just
That's where legislators can say all they want, county commissioners
Yeah,
can say all they
yeah.
want.
Yeah.
But until the school board, you know,
Okay.
sets the policy and the direction, and they have control over that.
Okay, I'll have to bring that up the next time I go. Okay, so we asked McKay the same thing. I said the Erickson name is pretty well known in the valley. I mean, everybody knows the Erickson name. Whether it's
Knows the what?
the Erickson name,
Oh, okay.
whether it's good or bad, you know, everybody knows the Ericksons. I think everybody knows the Wolfleys. How do you plan to not become one of the good old boys and join in, you know, and just kind of fall in and go, well, we could do this instead? How do you plan to stay true to your conservative values to benefit the county?
You bet, thank you. You know, excellent question there, because you've seen a lot of examples of what's happened when people get elected and go to state or federal office, that philosophy changes over time. So basically it boils down to is that I know who I am, and I know what I stand for, and I know that I want to have, like I say earlier, it's transparency. I want to the citizens to know how I vote and why. And then I expect, you know, the communication between myself and the citizen to show what the issues are and how I voted and why. And is this that, you know, I'm the type of person who would love to be able to go and have a public meeting one evening. Okay, come here and talk. And so when I was county commissioners, you know, I wanted to do that. The other two commissioners didn't want to do that. As far as just have an open meeting 2 or 3 times, you know, say this, what's going on? What are the issues, you know? But to me, how do you know unless you talk to people about how they feel and what they want there? And so I'm definitely in favor, you know, whatever, newspaper, articles, radio, you know, public meetings, just talking to whoever and say, this is the issues we're facing, you know? And so I want to be your advocate there, but you got to tell me how I'm doing. You know, am I meeting your expectations? So this may just sound like it's just another rhetoric there, but I don't know what else to say other than I believe in myself. Can stand up there, because I know I won't be there that long in the legislative, but I want to make sure that they know that Representative Wolfley, this is how he feels, this is how he votes. I talked to a legislator from over on the other side of the state about a month ago. And she was 2 years ago, she was new there, and I said, did you get much pressure, you know, from, quote, the state party leaders or the state legislative leaders, you know, to vote certain ways? And she said, oh no, because they knew, and she said, that happened in the past, where they tried to say, oh, you need to vote this way, you need to vote this way. But she said, they knew ahead of time, when I come in here, I made it very clear my philosophies and my feelings and my values and which direction I'll vote on certain key issues. And so they didn't bother me a bit. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other issues, you know, that my vote may change based upon getting more information. But the key issues, you know, go to family and protecting our liberties and our rights and our freedoms and just what's important. You know, that's, to me, is I'm there as far as that.
Have you had any contact with any of the bigger PACs that run around and try to influence people?
So they've, you know, as you sign up to be legislators, you probably get 20 different groups that send you surveys. You know, fill this out. And then there's been 4 or 5 that contacted me. Well, you know, fill this out and I'll look at, you know, as far as backing or whatever. And I said, well, I'll fill your survey out, but I don't have any interest in, you know, having backing by a national or group, whatever. So yeah, there's been several that's contacted us that way. I just sooner, you know, have the help and support from locals.
Are you self-funding yourself with support of locals, or
Self-funding support of
Funded.
locals.
Okay.
Anybody have any other pertaining questions? Okay, and then I think, well, just because it was asked to McKay, and you know, it's a small community, everybody knows everybody, and, you know, McKay's a good guy, you're a good guy, that guy, you know, but what do you think you bring to the table versus McKay as far as this position?
What I bring to the table is pretty much a lifetime of experience and work through a variety of areas I mentioned earlier. You know, for as my work as county commissioner, my work as a sheriff and law enforcement, working as a school board, and working, you know, for town of Alpine as administrator there, plus all the different state agencies that I've worked with over the years, and state programs and local programs. I know a lot of state legislators. I knew, you know, the past 3 or 4 governors, you know, I've known on a first name basis. And so what that means is that I have been blessed with the opportunity to learn and to grow and to have knowledge of the legislative process, how the bills originate, how they start, you know, what they go through as far as amendments and committee of the whole, and how they have to, you know, have a consensus after the House and the Senate vote on them if they don't match up. And so all those things there really have afforded me the opportunity to learn and to grow and be able to see things, you know, from perspectives of past experience, that when, you know, after election, then I can hit the ground running as far as being able to represent and get things going that I would like to need to in Cheyenne and with other legislators. Like I say, I've talked to several legislators already throughout the state about what they're doing, is the issues, what's going on there. So I just feel very strongly that I have that experience in the background, and working retail, having a store, you know, in Afton for 20 years. My wife and I ran, and working for another company there, and having that experience there, and see how the state and government interacts and guidelines and regulations affect there. So I just really have a good background and area of focus on how this position, that I can just move forward really quickly to serve the best.
All right.
Who do you see in your crystal ball as the next governor of the state?
At one time, I'd heard that Harriet was considering coming back and running for governor.
Well, I hope not, because she'd be a great governor, but she's still.
She needs to stay where she's at.
Yeah,
I know.
I
That would not, it would not be horrible, but stay where you're at for now.
So other than that, you know, I hear a few names tossed out there, and so I don't know. That's a wide open area there. Of course, you hear that, you know, Chuck Gray says he hears that Governor Gordon's going to run for 3rd term.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that last time too, that Gordon was trying to find
Well, we have
a
to
back
stop that.
door. Yeah, trying to find a back door
Yeah.
to run again,
Yeah,
and we
don't
thought,
want
oh
that.
no,
Don't
there's
want that.
no way,
We do not need the Sierra Club influence.
Yeah.
big time.
Yeah. And so we have some good people out there that can run it, but and that's you know, the trick and challenge is you hear and read about what they say and it's what they say, but then really down the road they're elected, are they going to hold firm?
That's the hard part. That's the hard part,
yeah.
because you know.
And that's the same question that she asked you, is like, how do you know, how do we know you're gonna hold firm
Yeah.
on your beliefs?
Exactly.
And we don't.
And we
you
don't.
know,
No.
nobody really does, and you just hope that what you say, you know, and I think,
Well, you could put up a bond right now for, let's say, $500,000, that'd be
Yeah.
perfect. That'd be
Yeah.
But that's the challenge though, because, you know, we feel in this room here pretty much the same thing,
yes,
same ways. But so you look at the rest of, in a lot of areas in Wyoming, you know, why they keep getting elected. Why? You know, why are they voting for the
Yep.
same people that do the same things?
Well, a lot of it has to do with primaries versus the main elections.
Yeah.
Gordon got elected because he got 30% of the vote in the primary.
Right.
I mean, 30% of the Republicans voted. I mean, 70% did not.
which is sad. So okay, how do we get more people to go and vote in the primary? How do we get more people to know that that is extremely important to get out there and vote? Because I think a lot of people think, the real election's not really until November. So do I really have to go out and vote in the primary? But
Well, this is a prime example.
But
The
Gordon,
GOP
that's-
convention ends tonight, but our primary is not until next month.
yes.
Yeah.
So how do we make that
That's a good question. It's a good question.
out there to where
In-
people
in
know?
Wyoming, historically, as we know, that the real races for most of them, at least as far as local and a lot of the state, Senate, and House, is decided in the
In
primary.
the primary.
Yeah, because it's very few Democrats run.
Mhm.
You
That's
know,
how we got Gordon.
yeah, exactly.
Yep. Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you, Deb.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
We
appreciate it very much.
So what does the T mean? You got T-Dab. What's your first?
So my full name is still Deb Wolfley,
Okay.
Theon Deb. Okay.
but I have a twin sister named Deborah, so we've always just gone Deb and Deborah.
Well, that works.
So when I signed up, I better put at least T.
And I never, and I, but looking at signs, I thought, T? Who is T?
Yeah.
Deb?
That's going to warn
Yeah.
people off,
Yeah.
you know. Dear T.
Yeah, yep. Because then you've got Debony, you know. So, yeah,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I appreciate it, Deb, and I'll get this loaded and you can share it how you want.